today we're going to talk about healing chronic bladder pain at home. I'm going to talk about my symptoms and what life was like, my experience in the medical system and their advice, how I started healing, and then lastly what I do to stay balanced and like what life looks like now. So honestly, talking about bladder pain on camera is personal and it's kind of, you know, it's talking about something negative that happened to me in the past that isn't happening now, so I don't really want to dwell on it. At the same time, I remember a year ago how I felt when I was dealing with this, and I felt so hopeless and I needed advice so much. So my intention with this video is to share my experience in the hopes that it can help somebody else's journey be faster. And I apologize if the lighting isn't ideal and everything. When I'm really speaking from the heart, I can't be worried about what I look like and what the set looks like, so I just trust that those who are ready and want to hear this message will be able to receive it regardless. Okay, so let's start off with talking about what my life was like when I had chronic bladder pain, just so we can make sure that we're on the same page about if you're experiencing what I was experiencing and how it was. So honestly, life was not worth living. That's how it felt when it was really bad. I was waking up like 4 to 7 times a night to pee because the smallest amount of liquid in my bladder would make me feel like I had to pee. Like the actual lining of my bladder was irritated, so that even if I drank a tiny amount of water, I would have to pee. And that alone, like having to wake up over and over at night, that is enough to drive a person crazy. It's like having a newborn infant. The chronic sleep deprivation and never ever having full energy during the day is so hard. It's so hard to make decisions and function. And it just feels miserable during the night because you can't get a good sleep. I had to take a cab everywhere, regardless of the price, because like I had to pee basically every 15 minutes. Even as I say that, like I can't believe that that was my reality. It makes doing things so hard. I would dread leaving the house, having to wait in lines. Yeah, like I didn't want to take public transit anywhere because I wasn't going to be sitting on the subway having to pee for like 45 minutes. I just wasn't myself. Like the pain of feeling that irritation, it's like this pain always in the back of your mind. It's like somebody like poking you all the time, and like you're just trying to have a conversation with somebody, or you know, cook or something, but like anything that's the least bit hard, like say to put away ingredients after cooking, I just would have such a hard time doing because I was so stressed with the pain in my bladder. Especially like an example I remember a lot is like being in the car, because I was lucky enough to get like rides from my family because I didn't want to take public transit, but like asking me to look something up on the map while we were driving, like on the GPS, I literally couldn't handle that amount of stress. And so I just wasn't myself, and I wasn't able to be a positive presence in a lot of people's lives at that time. I couldn't wear almost like most clothing. I couldn't wear because my waist area was just so sensitive. My bladder always felt like it was full, and so most clothing would irritate it, and I had to wear like loose sweatpants all the time. I was also having other pelvic pain and skin sensitivities, which I will probably talk more about at another time and do a separate video on where that came from and how I got rid of that. So that also contributed to difficulties wearing clothes. But like it really affects your sense of identity when you can't choose what you want to wear. You have to just wear baggy clothes and you feel like most people are looking at you thinking you're wearing pajamas or sweatpants, and it's like, this is literally all that I can wear right now. And in general, I was just super depressed, like just so confused about what was going on with my body. Okay, so let's talk about my experience in the medical system. So I had a history of going into hospitals, honestly, since I was a child for something and not really getting clear answers. Like, that had already been a trend. I was already a regular in my doctor's office. And I just found that I wasn't really believed when I talked about the amount of pain, or a lot of answers would seem as if they don't understand what I'm going through. Like, they're giving me advice, but it's not relevant. So for example, one specialist was like, you have to go to the washroom less often so that you can train your bladder to hold a larger amount of liquid. And it's like, but I'm not going to the bathroom just for fun. I'm going because it actually hurts to have liquid in it. So like, their advice may have been relevant for a different bladder issue, but they weren't really understanding what I was saying. And that honestly made me feel so alone and crazy, because all my friends and family are like, oh, when are you gonna, talk to the doctor next about it, trying to, encourage me to keep going and, asking for updates on my progress. But to them, they would be well-meaning and say, oh, when are you going to see the doctor next? And it's like, I'm trying to explain to you that the doctor is not helping me and they are not understanding what I am feeling. Yeah, I just felt like I would keep getting the same medication. It would have the same results, like temporary relief or like no relief at all, and I would just get prescribed the same one over and over and over, regardless of what I'm saying, how it's not working. Or I would go see a specialist. The specialist would have no clue or say, well, you should be talking to this person. Like, everybody would sort of wash their hands of the situation and say, oh, you should talk to this person or that person. And then I would go and they do all these tests, and it's really invasive and personal and physically and emotionally stressing, and then there'd be no results. And this could take months, and I'm trying to go to school or work, and I'm experiencing these symptoms the whole time. So it was really the hardest time of my life. I was in and out of school, and I ended up just dropping out of school and dropping out of work. I can't emphasize how much of a rock bottom it was. I was self-harming at the time in a way that, like, I just can't believe now. It was so hard. Okay, so onto the positive section in this, how I started healing. So I'd always done a lot of my own research because, as I said, I felt a lot of times like I wasn't getting relevant advice or help. So I'd always done a lot of research, but what I first started looking into that really made a difference was FIC. So FIC is feline interstitial cystitis. It had been suggested that I had interstitial cystitis, but when I looked up a lot of how to heal it in humans, it wasn't very hopeful. Like, there's no known cure. So in cats, that's the feline part of this, it generally happens to like a sensitive cat that's in a stressful environment. That can be like, it's being, basically how they define stressful is like it has a hard time getting to basic resources like bed or food without being stressed. And that doesn't mean that the cat is being bullied or like the owner is trying to stress it. It's just things that stress out a sensitive individual. For example, laundry being right beside the food bowl, so like when they're eating, there's all this food. That kind of thing can create a very painful situation in the bladder. And the solution for cats is basically to give them a more natural environment so they have more opportunity for exercise and to remove the stresses. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, like the solution is so obvious in cats. It's funny that it's not like that in humans. And as I looked at myself, I realized that I am a sensitive individual, and I had had that kind of situation. I was living a very stressful life for many reasons, like school and friend situations and, you know, alcohol and kind of university situations. And just things were not great with my family. I literally didn't feel like I could access food or access taking a shower without having to interact with stressors. And so I just applied the same solution to my life. I needed to give myself more natural environmental activities to do. So like I started going out into nature more because of the pain and lack of sleep. I had like just been sitting in my room all day really. So I started going out into nature more, and this kicked off like a 2-year very intense transition point with my family where we talked a lot about what we all needed. And a couple years ago, I'd be in the kitchen cooking and I didn't feel like I could play my music. I didn't feel comfortable. I felt stressed that X or Y was gonna happen. Now I can like wake up and walk into the kitchen and I can cook, and I know that I'll have my space and that the people around me know what I need. So an enormous amount of stress is lifted from my body, which has an enormous effect on my health and how my bladder feels. Speaking of the kitchen, I cleaned up my diet extremely. I think I had other allergies and such going on, but basically if you're eating food that irritates you because you're sensitive to whatever, you're gonna have pain somewhere. And as I mentioned, I also got skin irritation, and so I'll do a separate video specifically on that. But I really pulled back from eating out, from eating anything processed. I started doing celery juice, and I drank a lot of bone broth, and for a few months, I'm not gonna lie, I was bony, I was skinny, I was, you know, really hungry, but it was worth it to me to just totally cut out eating out, cut out pretty much anything except like a small amount of the highest quality meat that I could find and vegetables. I didn't use sauces, I didn't eat dairy, I had fruit, and that had an enormous effect. I can now eat a lot more of those foods. You know, I'm not just drinking celery juice anymore, but doing that for like 6 or 7 months strictly made a massive difference. So I really cleaned up my diet, and then I started really the most important overarching change that I made that I want to encourage you to do is I just started listening to the voice in my head. When I was sitting in those doctor rooms for year after year and they're saying this and that, it didn't feel right. I had this intuition that they don't understand what I'm going through, what they're talking about is not relevant to me, and I'm just sitting here month after month after month watching my life spiral. And it got to a breaking point where I was like, okay, I feel so much pain and I have sat here for so long in good faith waiting for other people to give me the answers. I have watched my life disappear. This is not the life that I came here to live. And I have this intuition in my head. I have this little voice giving me ideas. And so I'm just going to be open to this voice and start doing everything that I can possibly think of that makes sense to me to make myself better. And doing that is what made the change. That gave me the confidence to stop listening to doctors, and it pushed me into the lifestyle that I live now. So For example, I work with crystals, and like that's not something that I would have thought a few years ago would have any effect on my health, but I listened to that little voice, it led me there, and it worked out. So I'll get into specifically talking about what my life looks now and what I do now, but I really changed my whole way of living. You know, I shifted my entire lifestyle and I became so much more spiritual, and that step by step of doing what I think might work, and I don't have any proof, I don't have solid facts to back it up, but I feel like it might help, and then doing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing is what moved me out of that situation that I didn't want to be in. So like just being way more broad-minded. For example, looking at the fact that I had all these problems in the sacral chakra area. Okay, what does the sacral chakra mean? What does it represent? What, like, metaphysically, would a bladder problem mean? And the bladder is, and other things in our body, but the bladder, you know, it involves releasing, being able to, like, they take ideas in from our crown chakra and we release out through the root chakra. So like having issues releasing would manifest them physically as having release issues. So it's like I had to examine, am I able to release energy and traumas and ideas? Do I have an issue holding on to things from the past? And I had to work through that. I also started connecting with divine feminine energy because I had all these pelvic vaginal issues. So I had to look at the divine feminine energy within me and how I have repressed it or heard it. And that had a massive, massive effect on my body. So that was what I did to start feeling better. And now let's talk about what my life looks like now. So honestly, bladder pain is one of those things like that's so sort of abnormal to a healthy body that it's like sometimes I'll just be chilling in the car or whatever and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not miserable. I don't have to like urgently go to the bathroom all the time. Like it feels so normal to be healthy that sometimes I forget how bad it was, and I'm so grateful that that is where I am now. Right now I get up maybe one time a night, which I think is like not abnormal. You know, like I'm not perfect. I wouldn't say that every single one of my health issues I've perfectly eradicated, but I have made my life livable and vastly improved compared to where it was a year or 2 years ago. I'd say for the past 5 or 6 months, I've gradually been expanding what I eat food-wise, and it takes me a lot longer to have a flare-up. It still wouldn't be good for me to eat out, but if I do now and then, the consequences on my body are a lot less. I still don't eat out, unless I can help it. I don't eat gluten, I don't eat processed sugar, and I really limit my dairy, but of course I'm human, there are exceptions. Before I was smoking weed like 25 hours a day, I just couldn't handle the pain, and because I feel so much less pain, I really don't need weed anymore unless I actually want to be high. I don't like need it just to handle life. And like most importantly, I'm just able to be present in my body. My body isn't writhing with pain and anxiety and unpleasant feelings, and so it feels okay to be in my body, and I'm present in the moment because I'm not distracted by the pain there, and that is really a gift, I feel. I've just basically changed my life entirely. I'm not the person that I was when this illness started. I have so much more faith in myself, and things, you know, everyone's journey is going to be different. The things that I did to help myself may not help you, but like exactly the same things may not help you, but I do feel like these big changes, like listening to the voice in your head and overhauling your diet, I do feel like those will help a lot of people. And even if not exactly the same thing helps you, you just have to be prepared for the fact that you were in an environment that got you sick, and so to be not sick, you are going to have to change a lot. You know, illness doesn't come just from the body, it comes from the environment, it comes from our emotions. And so if you want to thrive, you're like a plant. Like a plant will die if it's in the wrong soil. You know, if I don't water this, if I put it in shitty soil, it will die. And then as soon as you put it in light, as soon as you give it some fertilizer or some better soil, it will thrive, and it wants to thrive. So you have to put yourself in situations that allow you to thrive. I cut out so many people. I cut out everything that stresses me. And I know as humans, you can't just throw out that you have to pay rent or whatever, but you have to want to get better, and you have to be brave about the changes that that is going to bring into your life and how much you are going to change in order to heal. Clothes is another one. Like I mentioned, when my symptoms were bad, I felt irritated sometimes that I could only wear sweatpants, pajamas, loose clothing, but I went through that process of being like, you know what, I don't give a F what other people think, I'm gonna wear what's comfortable to me. And so that's led me to a time where now I can wear things with waistbands, I can wear things that are a little tight, but you know, I still have to wear what's best for my skin and my body. And we live in a society where people do judge people, especially women, on what they wear. But you just have to be so committed to making yourself comfortable that how you feel matters more than what random other people might be thinking. Because yeah, the lifestyle that I live now is totally different from how it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I am surrounded by crystals. I wear comfy clothing. I meditate, and I connect with spirit. I believe in that. I have a totally different relationship with my family. I am a different person than the person that got sick, and that is the reason that I am healthier now. And again, I'm human. It's a journey. You know, our human bodies are sensitive, and it's not a failing if sometimes it feels pain. It's just a reaction to our environment. But yeah, I really needed help when I had these symptoms. I managed to turn around my symptoms myself with the help of my family. I did it myself, and so I know that you can too, whatever your journey is there. So yeah, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Queen of Squirrels, or comment below. I am open to talking more about this in a way that can help others, and I probably will make more detailed videos about exactly how I did things. So all my love, and keep going. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.